They said Shedeur Sanders didn't belong here. Not in this stadium, not on this stage, not in the NFL at all. To them, he wasn't a real prospect, just a fifth-round reach riding a famous last name, a quarterback built by cameras instead of competition. Every bad throw was proof. Every quiet week confirmed what they already believed. The league, they said, would eventually correct the mistake. By the time December rolled around, those voices got louder. Analysts questioned why Cleveland even let him dress. Fans demanded veterans. Comment sections called him a project, a publicity move, a social media experiment that had gone too far. And in their defense, the moment ahead of him looked impossible. A losing Browns team, a rookie quarterback, brutal weather, national pressure. Nothing about the setup screamed breakout. It screamed exposure. Because waiting on the other sideline wasn't just another defense, it was Aaron Rodgers, four-time MVP, future Hall of Famer, a quarterback who'd spent 2 decades punishing mistakes made by players exactly like Shedeur. This was supposed to be routine. One win and the division was locked. One clean afternoon in Pittsburgh moved on, while Cleveland faded back into irrelevance. That was the script everyone had already written. But something about this matchup felt uncomfortable, quietly uncomfortable, because the last name everyone mocked carried history, real history, and football has never cared about internet narratives. It only remembers moments. And long before the kickoff, rain pouring down and wind cutting across the field, one detail kept circling back. Deion Sanders had once stood exactly where his son was standing now, across from a young quarterback who didn't know what was coming. That's the part no one wanted to talk about. Legacies don't announce themselves. They test you first. And on this night, in a soaked stadium where expectations weighed heavier than the rain, Shedeur Sanders wasn't chasing validation. He was stepping into a moment built to end him. And the league was about to find out how wrong it had been. The expectations placed on Shedeur Sanders were never fair, and everyone knew it. From the moment his name appeared on draft boards, the conversation was already poisoned. He wasn't evaluated like other quarterbacks. There was no patience, no grace period, no benefit of the doubt. Every discussion started with his father, not his footwork. His bloodline became both headline and handicap. By the time he landed in Cleveland, the narrative had hardened. If he played well, it was because of coaching or play design. If he struggled, it was proof he never deserved the opportunity. Scouts quietly questioned his arm strength. Analysts dissected his poise like it was a flaw instead of a trait. Online, the word nepotism followed him everywhere, repeated so often it started to feel like fact rather than opinion. What made it worse was timing. Cleveland wasn't stable, and stability is a rookie quarterback's best friend. Injuries shuffled the lineup, game plans changed weekly, wins were scarce, and in a league where patience disappears by Sunday night, a young quarterback with a famous last name becomes the easiest target in the room. It didn't matter that he was learning on the fly. The scoreboard spoke louder than context. Vegas leaned into the doubt. Pundits leaned into the doubt. Pittsburgh came in favored, confident, already looking ahead to playoff scenarios. Most projections treated this game like a formality, a box to check before bigger matchups. The story wasn't whether Pittsburgh would win, it was how much film Shedeur would put out for critics to break apart afterward. But underneath all of that noise sat a truth no graphic ever showed. Quarterbacks don't survive the NFL by name alone. They survive by standing in the pocket when everything screams to fold. And the pressure surrounding Shedeur wasn't normal rookie pressure. It was generational, magnified, relentless. That kind of weight either breaks you early or hardens you into something no one saw coming. There was a moment most people missed, but Aaron Rodgers didn't. While cameras focused on weather reports and playoff graphics, his mind drifted somewhere else entirely, back 20 years, back to the beginning. Because long before he became a legend, Rodgers had once stood on the opposite side of this same equation, young, unproven, and trying not to make the mistake that would define him. In 2005, Rodgers stepped onto an NFL field for one of his earliest appearances, still learning how fast Sundays moved. Across from him stood a defense led by Deion Sanders, loud, relentless, and unforgiving. It wasn't a teaching moment, it was a reminder. One wrong throw could turn into a highlight that followed you for years. Rodgers survived that night, but he never forgot it. He's admitted as much. Some games brand themselves into you. That memory mattered more than anyone realized, because now, 2 decades later, the roles had shifted in a way that felt almost deliberate. Deion wasn't on the field anymore. He was watching from above, and standing where he once hunted quarterbacks was his son, Shedeur Sanders, carrying the same last name but writing a completely different chapter. History doesn't repeat itself cleanly in the NFL. It echoes, it lingers, it waits for moments where timelines collide just enough to make people uncomfortable. This was one of those moments, a veteran trying to hold on to control, a rookie trying to prove he belonged, and a legacy quietly sitting between them, unspoken but impossible to ignore. Rodgers had spent a career mastering chaos. He'd ended seasons, silenced crowds, and dismantled defenses with surgical calm. But as the rain picked up and the field turned slick, something felt different. Not because of the opponent's record, not because of the odds, because this wasn't just another game. It was a reminder of where careers begin and where they can unexpectedly change. From the very first snap, it was clear Shedeur Sanders didn't step onto the field carrying doubt. He stepped in like someone who had already accepted the chaos. Rain came down hard, wind cut sideways, and the ball felt slick in every quarterback's hands, conditions that usually shrink rookies fast. Instead, Shedeur looked untouched by it all, calm in a stadium that expected him to blink. Cleveland didn't ease him in. No conservative throws, no hiding behind the run game. The ball came out quickly, sharp, and deliberate. Each completion chipped away at the narrative that he wasn't ready. Short routes turned into confident gains. Tight windows didn't scare him. By the time the drive settled, the stat line already felt unreal. Efficient, aggressive, controlled. Not flashy, not reckless. Professional. Then came the throw that changed the energy of the entire game. Shedeur dropped back and saw a corner route developing in the end zone. Coverage was tight. 2 defenders closed fast. Most rookies would pull it down, live for another play. He didn't. He floated the ball to a spot only his receiver could reach, trusting timing over fear. The pass hung just long enough for everything to either go wrong or look genius. The catch landed squarely in the second category. The receiver adjusted mid-stride, secured the ball, and fell into the end zone as the crowd exploded. 10 points on the board. A stadium that expected a quiet afternoon suddenly had something to believe in. And on the sideline, Pittsburgh looked stunned. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not this quickly. Not like this. What made it hit harder was how normal it looked to him. No celebration, no show, just a jog back, a nod, and the calm reset of someone who knew this moment wasn't about proving people wrong, it was about taking control. But the game had barely started, and just as Cleveland's confidence began to swell, something unseen was already setting up the next twist. The shift didn't happen all at once. It crept in quietly, the kind of change you only notice after it's already taken hold. Cleveland's momentum was real, but it was fragile, and it cracked the moment their most reliable target went down. On a slick patch of turf, his leg gave out, and just like that, Cleveland Browns lost the one player who'd helped stretch the field early. No dramatic collision, no crowd warning, just the slow realization that he wasn't coming back. Suddenly, the burden grew heavier on Shedeur Sanders. Fewer options, tighter coverage, less margin for error, and it showed on the very next mistake. Rolling right under pressure, Shedeur tried to force a throw back across his body, the kind of decision veteran coordinators warn rookies about from day one. The ball floated just a split second too long, hanging in the rain like a regret waiting to happen. The interception came fast, contact at release, a defender breaking underneath, a play that instantly validated every criticism thrown his way over the past year. Broadcasters didn't hesitate to call it a terrible decision. Social media reacted even faster, already rewriting the night's story before the replay finished rolling. And then the cameras found Deion Sanders, sitting above the field, unable to hide it. He pulled his hat down, burying his face inside it, the weight of every doubt and expectation flashing across one silent moment. That image didn't just go viral, it humanized the entire night. A father watching his son stumble on the same stage where legends are made or broken. But what didn't show up on the highlight packages was what happened next. There was no panic, no collapse, no spiral. Cleveland's defense held firm, refusing to let the mistake snowball. And on the sideline, Shedeur didn't hang his head. He listened. He reset. He waited for the next chance. Because the interception didn't define the night. It challenged him to respond. As the rain intensified and the field deteriorated, the game began asking a different question. It wasn't about flash anymore. It was about control. And slowly, almost subtly, that's where the cracks started to show in Aaron Rodgers. The throws that once came effortlessly now arrived a beat late. Windows closed faster. Pressure felt heavier. For the first time all afternoon, Pittsburgh wasn't dictating anything. Cleveland's defense sensed it. They disguised coverages, crowded passing lanes, and refused to give Rodgers the easy reads he'd lived on for years. Snap after snap, he was forced to hold the ball just long enough for chaos to arrive. Sacks weren't always recorded, but hits were felt. The rhythm he depended on never fully formed, and frustration began creeping into his body language. What made the contrast sharper was what was happening on the other sideline. Shedeur Sanders wasn't chasing hero throws. After the mistake, his game shifted. Safer decisions, smarter checkdowns, conversions that didn't excite highlight reels, but extended drives. That's the part casual viewers miss. Managing a game isn't passive, it's calculated restraint. The second half turned into a grind. Points disappeared, possessions tightened, and with every stalled drive, Rodgers felt the urgency rise. This was supposed to be routine. Instead, it started to feel like a trap. Every incomplete pass drew a reaction. Every third down miss narrowed the margin. Time, once an ally, started becoming an enemy. By the fourth quarter, the script had flipped completely. The rookie was calm, playing within himself. The veteran was pressing, searching for something he'd always been able to summon. And in a night built on legacy, weather, and pressure, one truth became impossible to ignore. Experience doesn't always win games. Sometimes it just makes the loss harder to accept. The final minutes didn't unfold with fireworks. They unfolded with tension. Cleveland held a narrow lead, and every decision carried weight. This was the moment where coaches choose between fear and confidence. And when the ball ended up in Shedeur Sanders' hands again, the message was clear. They trusted him. He didn't chase the knockout blow. He didn't force anything reckless. Short throws, safe completions, just enough movement to bleed the clock and tilt the math in Cleveland's favor. The drive wasn't loud, but it was decisive. When the kick sailed through the uprights, the scoreboard shifted, and suddenly Pittsburgh's season hung by a thread. That's when the moment everyone expected finally arrived. One last chance. No timeouts. The field shrinking with every second. Aaron Rodgers stood where legends live. 2 minutes, pressure, and everything to lose. This was supposed to be familiar territory.
The drive started fast. A strike here, another quick gain there. The crowd noise swelled as Pittsburgh crossed midfield and closed in. For a few seconds, it felt inevitable. This was what Rodgers had done his entire career. Survival mode turned into confidence, and Cleveland fans felt it too. Then, everything tightened. At the goal line, reads broke down. Timing slipped. A defender jumped the route by instinct, nearly stealing the game outright. Another throw sailed incomplete. No penalty, no bailout. Just silence growing louder with every snap. On the final play, Rodgers lofted the ball toward the corner, trusting placement over chaos. The coverage was perfect. The pass fell harmlessly to the turf. No miracle, no late flag. The clock expired, and with it, Pittsburgh's control over its own fate. As Cleveland Browns kneeled to seal it, the stadium didn't erupt, it exhaled. Because that wasn't just a failed drive, it was the moment a season slipped away, and a rookie became unforgettable. The noise started before the field even cleared. As soon as the final whistle blew, the conversation shifted away from the scoreboard and straight into suspicion. Fans didn't want to process what they had just watched, so they searched for explanations that felt easier to swallow. Online threads exploded, clips were slowed down, screenshots froze at awkward angles, and suddenly the game wasn't just a loss, it was questionable. The loudest accusations centered on a single late hit that drew a flag against Pittsburgh. Some fans swore it was clean, others argued the timing was marginal. Rumors suggested the league wanted a storyline, that Cleveland needed a boost, that drama mattered more than fairness. None of it was proven, but that didn't slow anything down. In moments like this, speculation spreads faster than context ever could. What got buried beneath the outrage was what actually followed the call. Cleveland didn't score. The drive stalled. No points came from it. The penalty didn't swing momentum or decide the outcome. It just became a convenient target. Because accepting that a struggling team played smarter football than a contender is uncomfortable, especially when pride is involved. Coaches saw it differently. Locker rooms usually do. Publicly, Pittsburgh acknowledged missed opportunities. Quietly, respect surfaced for Shedeur Sanders. He didn't fold under scrutiny. He didn't hand the game away after the interception. He protected the lead, enforced the pressure back where it belonged. And while social media kept spiraling, one fact stayed untouched. Aaron Rodgers had the ball with the season on the line, and it ended without points. No conspiracy explains miscommunication at the goal line. No league agenda causes timing to break down. Those moments belong to the players on the field. By morning, the chaos hadn't settled, but the narrative had cracked, because when the takes cooled and the tape told the truth, there was only one conclusion left standing.
Cleveland didn't steal the game. They survived it. When the final numbers were laid out, the argument quietly ended, not because they were perfect, but because they were honest. Shedeur Sanders didn't win with spectacle, he won with control. He threw the touchdown that mattered, he absorbed the mistake that tested him, and when the game demanded patience instead of ego, he delivered exactly that. This night didn't erase the doubts overnight, but it reshaped them. For the first time, the conversation wasn't about projection or potential, it was about outcome. Cleveland didn't get a viral performance, they got a quarterback who handled pressure without panic. The front office saw it, the locker room felt it, and quietly, the league noticed. On the other side stood Aaron Rodgers, walking away with questions that didn't have easy answers anymore. Careers don't end in a single game, but moments like this linger. When opportunity arrives and slips away, the echoes stay longer than the noise. Experience didn't fail him, time simply asked a harder question. For years, comparisons followed Shedeur like a shadow, every throw measured against a last name, every mistake magnified by legacy. But football doesn't care about family trees. It cares about decisions made under pressure. It cares about third downs in the rain, and it remembers who stood tall when excuses were available. 20 years ago, Deion Sanders disrupted games by taking the ball away. This time, his son did something just as effective. He took belief away from a team that thought the outcome was already decided. The bloodline didn't win this game. Preparation did. Poise did. And on a night when doubt was everywhere, Shedeur Sanders walked away with something far more valuable than validation: proof.